Hi, welcome to Sun Mathematics. This is going to be the first math video I'll be doing with how to do whatever these math questions are. Opening up the photo real quick. There's like this first part of it. Now, like, it's totally a-okay because you guys don't know the location, but it just says like, don't just sit there babbling like a 2-year-old through your test. And I want to say, like, what a terrible thing to put on a test. So for any of you guys out there, if you're teachers and you're like, should I put something like that on the front of a test to inspire my students to take the test? My advice from one person to another is maybe not. Maybe consider something else than that. But anyways, this is a math video on writing a series of functions to a certain graph. So I'm just going to be going ahead and putting the question onto paper. Let me go ahead and try to get an angle that works okay. I might need to figure something else out. Try this. Yeah, so this is gonna take a while, so go ahead and click the timestamp. So by the way, guys, I'm gonna be putting timestamps so you guys don't have to go through this beginning part. So go ahead and go to the timestamp below on, I always want to say like going to your reading, but like to the math problem, so you can see what the math problem is and everything. Okay. This seems to work. All right. And then, boom, awesome. Okay, so this is a math question on graphing. I think they're called piecewise functions. So the photo's pretty blurry, but the function basically looks like this. I think it goes to the tally marks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it also does that this way. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it looks like it goes to 5, 5. Right there. And then until 8, 6, 7, 8, this stays the same. And then going, it actually goes a little further. 12. Goes to 12. No, 13. Sorry. 13, and then it goes up to, I believe that's 7. So I'm going to be writing down the bullet points, or the plot points, whatever you want to call them. So this is, I believe, no, it was supposed to go to 12. Just pretend that goes to 12. So we've got 12, 7 right here. And then this right here is 8, 5. And over here is 5, 5. And over here is 0, 0, the origin. So hopefully you guys can see this all right. Yeah, I'll get better with the angle and stuff in the future, but just kind of try to follow along. I am gonna move the camera on the other side to get the shadow out of the way. Okay. Now there's my shadow. So yeah, I'll figure this out eventually. Let's see. Oh, this kind of works. Okay, so right there seems to be good. Maybe if I move more like this. Okay, so I'm just gonna trust that you guys can see this. So the question number 1 on this assignment says, is g of x equals a piecewise function? So this is literally what's written down. So your goal is to write the equation for the space between when that applies on this, because if you can see, there are 3 different equations on here. There's this line, there's that line, and that line. So the question when it comes to piecewise functions, when you see the word piecewise function or equations, whatever, ask yourself, how many equations are there? And the equations, what that is asking is how many lines are there? There's 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines. As you can see, those are 3 different lines. So those are 3 different functions, 3 different equations. So we'll go with the first line. The first line applies from the x point of 0 to the x point of 5. So over here, I forget exactly what you write. I think you just put a comma on the equation, and then you write like 0 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 5. This is saying for when the x points are in between 0 and 5. That's what this says. And then the next part of it is going to be between 5 and 8. So you're going to write 5 less than x less than or equal to 8. The reason I'm doing less than right here instead of less than or equal to is because I believe that means that this point is being claimed basically by the first line, and then everything after that point is claimed by the second line. If that sounded confusing, go ahead and just ask me and I can let you know. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like when you're approaching a graph, like there's the right before approaching that point, and there's the actual part where you're on that point. And that's what the whole difference between less than or equal or less than represents. But moving forward, the next part of this is 8 being less than x and less than or equal to, I'm pretty confident it does say 12 on there, so 12. And this would be your piecewise function. Now all you have to do is figure out what the equations are for each of those 3 different ones. So this is simply the equation y. So to figure out linear equations, you need to figure out y equals mx plus b. I know I'm like writing up here all of a sudden. Sorry about that. But anyways, this is what all linear equations will look like. They're all in the form of mx plus b. So long as your piecewise functions are in linear forms, these equations are all going to be linear equations. So yeah, also, it might not be lines, it might be curves. Sorry, keep that in mind. I think a different question is going to focus more on curves, but this is question number 1, which just focuses on lines. So the equation of this, y equals mx plus b, it happens to be just simply y equals x. So this is the y part, y equals x. And then I put a comma there to represent the space in between here. So if you go onto your graphing calculator and you just put in the letter x and you hit graph, it is going to show you a line that looks just like this one, only it's not going to stop at 5, it's going to go onwards forever. Unless if you put a domain, which is, by the way, that's what this whole right side over here is called. This is all called the domain. So that's the first part. The second part, there is no slope. There is no curve or angle to your line. It's just a horizontal line. When it's horizontal, that means there is no influence from this mx part. In other words, it's 0x plus b, and 0x is just 0. So all there is whatever your b value is. The b value is whatever the height of your line is at. As you can see, the height is at the y value of 5. So literally what you write here is 5 There's nothing else to it. Now this one is where you're going to have to figure out what the actual slope of this is. The reason why this equation up here is y equals x is because the slope is an exact 1-to-1 ratio. It's going to reach this point at 1, 1. It's going to reach this point at the plot point 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, and then finally 5, 5. That means when you plug in whatever x value into here, that's the same exact y value. That is not the case for this point right here, from 8, 5 to 12, 7. This is a very different line, actually. What you're going to have to do here is you do need to solve for this equation. So I'm going to solve that down here. So with y equals mx plus b, there's a few different ways of going about this that might help you guys. One way might just be redrawing the line. Redraw this one where you know over here this part of the line is like 8, 5, and this part of the line is 12, 7, and then draw it all the way so that it reaches over here. The goal, you need to figure out what this point is, because this point is what the b value essentially is going to be called. And if that's kind of confusing, you guys can also ask me questions and let me know about that. The reason why is because when you plug in 0 to x, you get 0 as this whole number. All that will remain is the height. That's why the b value in math, they tell you that's the value when it's at the y-intercept is what this is called. This vertical line of the axis or whatever. This is your b value every single time, because that's where x is going to equal 0. And when x equals 0, this whole thing is going to be 0 plus your height. So I hope that all made sense, how I'm drawing that conclusion there. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to logic this out. If going to the right 4 made me go up by 2, if you're wondering where those numbers come from, 8 to 12 is 4, and 5 to 7 is 2. So it's like you went to the right 4 points, and you went up 2 points. That means I can go to the left 4 points, which is going to be 4, comma, and then down 2 points, which is 5 minus 2, which is 3. So if you saw how I did that, that's how I know this is 4, 3. Over here is 8, 5, and up here is 12, 7. You can see a pattern that as you add 4 to the right, you add 2 vertically. So you can go backwards. So then that means this is 0, 1. That's how I found this y-intercept point. That's how I know that the b value is the number 1, because that's what the y value is. So I'm going to rewrite this equation now. Y equals mx plus 1. Now you have to solve for m. And m, by the way, means slope. It's the rate in which the graph is, the line is, it's the angle of the line, basically. Which is why x is here, because the slope is 1. There's technically a 1x. You shouldn't get docked off for writing 1x, but teachers might be like kind of weird about that. I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah, that's how the slope here is just 1. That's why I just wrote x. And there's no plus b part because the intercept is at 0 for the y-intercept. So it's literally 1x plus 0 is what the y equals mx plus b would look like for this one. I hope that's all making sense. So going back to this part, right now we have y equals mx plus 1. This is very different than just knowing what m is. So you're gonna have to solve for it. How you do that is literally you plug in an x and a y point that is a pair. I'm gonna plug in 12 and 7 to my y and my x. You gotta be real careful about this, so make sure that you write the 7 for y and that you write the 12 for x. So that's m, and then that's parentheses 12, m times 12 plus 1. You can totally just rewrite this as 7 equals 12m plus 1. You subtract 1 to both sides to get rid of this over here, and that gets you 6 equals 12m. And now you divide 12 to both sides, and that gets you 1/2, because that is going to get you 6 divided by 12 equals 12 divided by 12m. This is the same thing as writing 1/2 equals m. So Now you've solved for m, and you rewrite this into your original equation. Y equals 1/2 x plus 1. I hope that made sense. This is basically inspired based off of mx plus b. As you can see, this m that equals 1/2, I've replaced that m to say 1/2. This b, I've solved for it by finding the y-intercept here, which is just the number 1. So I replaced b with the number 1. So that's how you find the equation. So you would write 1/2 x plus 1 for this last part. So there you have it. That is doing linear piecewise functions. I hope this made sense. There are a lot of different ways to find mx plus b. This might just be a way that might make sense. If not, I can do this problem in a different way. Just let me know your feedback. To whoever might be listening to this, if you made it through the video, Kaden. Alright, love and light. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. Hope that was helpful. Take care.